Welcome, dear friends, to a peaceful journey through the vast and wondrous world of Marvel. Tonight, we'll drift softly through the stories of heroes, villains, and cosmic beings, each one intricately woven into the fabric of the Marvel Universe. From the humble origins of a lone superhero to the mighty clashes of gods and galaxies, we'll explore the lore that has captivated hearts for decades. As you settle in, let the tales of Spider Man's quiet struggle, Iron Man's redemption, and Thor's divine purpose carry you gently into a state of calm. Marvel's world is vast, its characters complex, and its stories full of wonder. But tonight, we move through them slowly, softly, with no rush. Just let the soothing rhythm of their tales guide you into sleep. Now take a moment to settle in, breathing softly, letting the weight of your body sink deeper into comfort. Let any tension you're carrying melt away and feel the gentle peace of the night wrap around you. Your breath is steady, slow, and the world outside fades as we begin this quiet adventure together. And if you enjoy drifting through stories like this, you're welcome to subscribe and softly tell me where you're listening from tonight. Now, let's begin our journey into the Marvel Universe. The stories unfold, soft as a dream, waiting to carry you into peaceful slumber. The story of Marvel begins in the early years of the 20th century, in a world that was just beginning to imagine the fantastic, the extraordinary, and the impossible. It was a time when comic books were still in their infancy, a mere whisper of the vibrant universe they would one day become. But in the quiet corners of New York City, two visionaries, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, began to dream of something greater. They crafted characters who would go on to shape the hearts of millions, characters whose stories would span galaxies, challenge the very fabric of reality, and inspire generations. The creation of Marvel Comics started in 1939 under the name Timely Comics. The company's early days were filled with superheroes like the Human Torch and Submariner, each of them carrying the spark of something new, something revolutionary. The air was thick with possibilities, the promise of more to come, and slowly but surely, the Marvel Universe began to take shape, stretching across pages and capturing the imagination of all who would listen. But it was in the early 1960s that Marvel truly began to bloom. Stan Lee, with the quiet guidance of Jack Kirby, created a world where heroes were flawed, where their struggles felt real, and where their triumphs were earned through persistence, heartache, and sacrifice. It was in this time that Spider Man swung into the pages, a teenage boy burdened with the responsibility of his powers, reminding us that even the mightiest heroes are human too. There was something deeply grounding about these stories, something that resonated with people on a personal level, whispering truths about courage, resilience, and hope. As the years passed, more heroes were born, each one adding layers to the Marvel tapestry. Iron Man, with his gleaming armor and complex soul, was a man on the edge of redemption, while Thor, the god of thunder, reminded us of the balance between pride and humility. And then there was the Hulk, an embodiment of rage and vulnerability, a character whose story was as much about inner conflict as it was about smashing through obstacles. Through these heroes, Marvel not only built a universe, it built a sanctuary where fans could find something of themselves in the pages. A world of contradictions, where darkness and light coexisted, and where each character, despite their flaws, was trying to do their best in a world full of uncertainties. Marvel became a mirror, reflecting the human condition with warmth, understanding, and a gentle touch. And so, this is where the story of Marvel begins, within the quiet, steady pulse of its early creators' dreams. From these beginnings, a universe blossomed. The journey was long and winding, but each step brought us closer to the Marvel universe we know today. In the warmth of these stories, we are reminded of the courage that resides in all of us, of the strength we find when we stand together, and of the power of imagination to lift us to new heights. As the Marvel Universe began to take shape in the quiet spaces of imagination, a new age of superheroes dawned, bringing with it characters who would forever change the landscape of storytelling. In the earliest days, heroes were symbols of purity and virtue, standing tall against the forces of evil with unwavering resolve. Yet in Marvel's hands, they began to evolve into something more, a reflection of the complexities of life itself, filled with inner struggles, moral dilemmas, and flaws that made them feel more human than any hero had before. The emergence of the Avengers in 1963 marked a pivotal moment, a convergence of some of Marvel's most iconic figures into a single team, a family of diverse personalities and powers. At its core, the Avengers were not just defenders of Earth, but a symbol of unity in a world that often seemed divided. Iron Man, with his armor of technology, standing side by side with Captain America, a soldier from a bygone era, and Thor, the Norse god with the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. The tension between their differences made their unity all the more powerful, a reminder that even the most disparate elements can come together to form something greater than the sum of their parts. Yet the true beauty of Marvel's superheroes lay not in their perfection, but in their imperfections. Captain America, the living symbol of hope, struggled with the idea of being a man out of time, a soldier without a war. His journey was one of rediscovery, learning that his true battle was not against enemies, but against the disillusionment that came with living in a world that had changed so much from the one he knew. His strength wasn't just in his shield, but in his ability to adapt and hold on to his values in a world that no longer seemed to share them. Iron Man, too, found his strength not in his wealth or his armor, but in his vulnerability. Tony Stark was at his heart a man burdened by the consequences of his own actions. His journey was one of redemption, of learning to take responsibility for his mistakes and use his brilliance for the greater good. It was a constant struggle between his ego and his desire to do what was right, a tension that made him one of the most complex heroes in the Marvel Universe. As the Avengers rose, so too did the X-Men, a team whose origin and purpose would become a reflection of the social struggles of the time. Created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the X-Men were mutants, individuals with extraordinary abilities who were often shunned and feared by society. They became a metaphor for the marginalized, a symbol of what it meant to be different in a world that demanded conformity. At the heart of the X-Men was Professor X, a man who dreamed of a world where mutants and humans could coexist in peace, a dream that was constantly challenged by Magneto, his friend turned foe, whose belief in mutant superiority led him down a darker path. The X-Men's story was not one of simple battles between good and evil, but a profound exploration of identity, fear, and acceptance. The characters, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, Storm, and many others, were not perfect. They were all struggling with their place in a world that did not understand them, and their journey was as much about finding themselves as it was about saving the world. In this age of superheroes, Marvel began to create not just characters, but stories that reflected the nuances of real life. Heroes were no longer infallible. They had doubts, fears, and flaws, elements that made them more relatable, more human. These stories spoke to readers on a deeply emotional level, offering them a chance to see themselves in the heroes they admired. In this quiet moment of reflection, we realize that the rise of superheroes was not just the birth of larger than life figures, but the beginning of a new kind of storytelling, one that embraced the complexity of the human spirit. It was a world where heroes could be both flawed and extraordinary, and where their greatest battles were often within themselves. As the Marvel Universe grew, so too did the scope of its stories, stretching far beyond the confines of Earth and into the boundless cosmos. The cosmic aspect of Marvel was not just about vast planets and distant stars. It was about exploring the very nature of existence, time, and space itself. It was a quiet invitation to consider the infinite, to think about the universe as a place of wonder, danger, and mystery, where even the mightiest heroes must face forces beyond their understanding. One of the most compelling elements of the cosmic side of Marvel is its pantheon of ancient godlike beings who shaped the universe long before the rise of human civilization. The Celestials, a race of powerful and enigmatic entities, are among the most prominent of these cosmic forces. These beings, vast in scale and almost beyond comprehension, have been silently influencing the course of existence for eons. Their role in the creation of life, their experiments with humanity, and their constant watch over the cosmos form an underlying thread of mystery that runs through many Marvel stories. The Celestials' influence on the Marvel Universe is far reaching, and yet it often remains an elusive, quiet presence. These beings are not just gods in the traditional sense. They are more like cosmic architects, shaping the evolution of life and the very fabric of the universe. They are silent watchers, orchestrating events that ripple through time and space without ever fully revealing their true purpose. Then there is Galactus, the devourer of worlds, whose presence brings a sense of foreboding and inevitability. Galactus, once a mortal man, became something far greater when he was consumed by the cosmic energies of the universe. Now, he roams the stars, feeding on the life force of entire planets to sustain his existence. Galactus is a force of nature, a reminder of the fragility of life and the balance of power in the universe. He is neither villain nor hero, but a cosmic entity driven by an insatiable hunger that cannot be ignored. Galactus's herald, the Silver Surfer, is one of the most tragic and heroic characters in the Marvel Universe. Once a servant of Galactus, the Silver Surfer grew to understand the consequences of his actions and rebelled against his master. His story is one of redemption, of seeking a way to right the wrongs he had committed, and of finding hope in the vast expanse of space. The Silver Surfer's quiet journey is a reflection of the constant struggle between duty and morality, between the overwhelming power of the universe and the quiet strength of the individual soul. Beyond the Celestials and Galactus, the Marvel cosmos is filled with countless other beings and realms, each contributing to the grand cosmic tapestry. The Watchers, for example, are a race of beings who observe the universe without ever interfering, bearing witness to the events that shape existence. Their existence is a paradox, bound by their vow to never intervene, yet always present, quietly observing the rise and fall of civilizations, the rise of heroes and villains, and the ongoing dance of life and death. In the Marvel Universe, the cosmos is not just a backdrop for epic battles and grand adventures, it is a place of deep philosophical exploration. The stars above are not distant and uncaring. They are filled with meaning, with ancient forces that shape the lives of every being in the universe. It is in these vast reaches of space that some of Marvel's most profound stories take place, stories that ask questions about existence, fate, and the true nature of power. The cosmic realm of Marvel invites us to imagine a universe that is far more complex than we can truly understand. It asks us to look beyond our small corner of the world and consider the bigger picture, the quiet, eternal dance of creation and destruction that plays out on a cosmic scale. And in doing so, it offers us a sense of awe, a sense of wonder at the vastness of it all. Among the most profound and reflective stories in the Marvel Universe is that of the X-Men. At their core, the X-Men are not simply a team of heroes. They are a symbol of society's struggle with difference, with fear, and with a quest for acceptance. Born out of the struggles of the civil rights movement, the X-Men's story is a quiet reflection on the nature of prejudice and the challenges faced by those who are seen as so other. The X-Men, mutants with extraordinary powers, were cast out of society. The world viewed them with fear, with suspicion, and sometimes with outright hostility. At the heart of this team is Professor X, a man who believes in peaceful coexistence between mutants and humans, a dream that is constantly challenged by the bitterness of his old friend, Magneto. The contrast between these two men, the hopeful dreamer and the hardened realist, forms the emotional core of the X-Men's narrative. Professor X, with his vast psychic powers, dreams of a world where mutants and humans live together in peace. He founded the X-Men, a team of mutants who would defend both mutants and humans alike, with the belief that understanding and cooperation were possible. In many ways, he is the embodiment of hope, a quiet, unwavering belief in a future where tolerance and compassion can overcome fear and hatred. But not all mutants share Professor X's vision. Magneto, once a friend, became his adversary, believing that mutants should rise up against humanity, that they should embrace their superiority rather than seek integration. His experiences during the Holocaust shaped his outlook. He had seen firsthand the horrors of prejudice, and he believed that mutants could never truly be accepted by humanity. Magneto's story is one of pain and survival, and his journey is marked by his struggle to protect his people in a world that hates them. This central conflict, the ideological clash between Professor X's peaceful dreams and Magneto's militant resolve, forms the backbone of the X-Men's story. But the beauty of the X-Men is that they are not merely political symbols. They are individuals, each with their own personal struggles, fears, and desires. Cyclops, the steadfast leader; John Grey, whose immense psychic powers come with both beauty and danger; Wolverine, the reluctant hero with a painful past; Storm, whose ability to control the weather mirrors her journey to control her own destiny. These are the characters who form the heart of the X-Men team. Each member of the X-Men is more than just a mutant with a power. They are people, each struggling to find their place in a world that fears them. And in many ways, The X-Men's journey is a reflection of our own struggles to belong, to be accepted, and to understand who we are in a world that often demands we be something we're not. Their stories are filled with moments of hope and despair, of triumph and tragedy. But at the core of it all is the belief that despite the odds, love, understanding, and acceptance can ultimately overcome fear and prejudice. The X-Men's legacy is not just in their heroic feats, it is in the quiet strength of their convictions, their willingness to stand up for what they believe in, even when the world turns its back on them. Their story reminds us of the power of unity in the face of division, of courage in the face of fear, and of the importance of embracing difference rather than fearing it. In the end, the X-Men are not just mutants, they are symbols of hope for all who have ever felt like they didn't belong. They teach us that our differences are not weaknesses, but strengths, and that together we can overcome even the darkest of fears. One of the most beloved characters in the Marvel Universe, Spider Man, came to life in 1962 under the hands of writer Stan Lee and artist Steve Ditko. But it was not just his powers, his costume, or his iconic web slinging that captured the hearts of millions. It was his relatability, his humanity, that made him a hero unlike any other. Spider Man, also known as Peter Parker, was not a billionaire, nor a god, nor a man of perfect strength. He was an ordinary teenager, struggling with his own insecurities, with school, with family, and with the loss of his beloved Uncle Ben. Peter Parker's journey began with a tragic accident. A radioactive spider bite gave him the ability to scale walls, crawl up buildings, and shoot webs from his wrists. But it was not these powers that truly made him a hero. It was the lesson that followed. With great power comes great responsibility. This simple yet profound statement became the cornerstone of Spider Man's ethos, a reminder that no matter how small or powerless we might feel at times, we all have the ability to make a difference. The real beauty of Spider Man's story lies in his struggle. Unlike many heroes who are defined by their strength or nobility, Peter Parker is defined by his flaws, his doubts, and his vulnerability. He is constantly torn between his responsibilities as a hero and his desire to live a normal life, whether that's going to school, maintaining friendships, or dating Mary Jane Watson. His life is filled with heartbreak and loss, and yet, through it all, he continues to persevere. In many ways, Spider Man's story is a quiet reflection of the everyday struggles we all face, whether it be balancing work and family, dealing with loss, or finding the courage to keep going despite the odds. In the early days of his adventures, Spider Man fought street level villains, gangsters, petty criminals, and scheming scientists. But as his story grew, so did his foes. From the Green Goblin to Dr. Octopus, from Venom to the Sinister Vulture, Spider Man faced some of the most complex and dangerous villains in the Marvel Universe. These adversaries were not just threats to Peter Parker's life, but to his very identity. Many of his enemies, like the Green Goblin, were people he loved: Norman Osborn, the father of his best friend Harry. This added layers of emotional conflict to his already complicated life, making his victories even sweeter and his losses even more profound. But even as Spider Man's world expanded to include larger than life threats, it was always his personal struggles that grounded the character. The loss of Uncle Ben, the sacrifices he made for the good of others, the loneliness he often felt, All of these elements helped to make Spider Man a deeply human hero, one whose struggles and triumphs resonated with people of all ages and walks of life. He taught us that it's not our powers that define us, but how we choose to use them and the responsibility we take for the world around us. At its heart, Spider Man's story is about growth. Peter Parker starts as a shy, awkward teenager, unsure of his place in the world, but through the trials and tribulations he faces, he evolves into a hero. His journey is not just one of saving the world, it is one of self discovery, of learning to live with the consequences of his actions, and of finding hope in the darkest of times. Even when he loses everything, his family, his friends, and his love, he never loses the core belief that he must keep going, that he must remain true to his responsibilities, no matter how difficult it may be. And so, Spider Man's legacy is not just in the battles he fought or the villains he overcame, it is in the quiet, steadfast strength that resides within him. It is in his ability to keep going, even when the world around him seems too overwhelming. It is in his willingness to keep trying, even when failure seems inevitable. Spider Man's story is a reminder to all of us that no matter how small we may feel, no matter how much we might struggle, we all have the potential to make a difference. In the world of Marvel, Spider Man stands as a symbol of hope for those who feel lost, for those who doubt themselves, and for those who struggle to find their way. His journey teaches us that despite our flaws and mistakes, we can always choose to rise again, and that, with great responsibility, comes great strength. The creation of the Avengers in 1963 marked a defining moment in the Marvel Universe, a moment when heroes from different corners of the world, with unique strengths and personalities, came together to face challenges too great for any one hero to bear alone. The idea of the Avengers was simple: unite Earth's mightiest heroes and form a team that could defend the world from threats beyond human comprehension. And so, a new chapter in the Marvel saga began, one filled with camaraderie, sacrifice, and the unyielding belief that together we are stronger. At the heart of the Avengers lies a sense of unity, a belief that the combined strength of different individuals, each with their own flaws and strengths, can overcome even the most formidable of enemies. The team was formed by Tony Stark, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Hulk, and the Black Widow. Each hero brought something unique to the table. Iron Man with his brilliant intellect and technological prowess, Thor with his godly strength and mystical hammer, Captain America with his unshakable sense of duty, the Hulk with his raw power and unstoppable rage, and Black Widow with her stealth, agility, and cunning. These were not just the greatest superheroes of Earth. They were individuals who, despite their differences, shared a common goal: to protect the world they loved. But this goal was not always easy to achieve. The Avengers' journey was filled with moments of doubt, of clashes between personalities, and of challenges that seemed insurmountable. Captain America, with his unwavering sense of morality, often found himself at odds with Tony Stark's pragmatic approach. Thor, a god with centuries of experience, struggled to fit into a team of mortals. And the Hulk, whose rage could threaten to tear the team apart, was a constant reminder that power could be both a gift and a curse. Yet despite their struggles, the Avengers remained a symbol of hope and unity. They were a reflection of the best of humanity, flawed yet determined, always striving to do what was right, even when it seemed impossible. They taught us that it wasn't about perfection, it was about the willingness to work together, to understand one another's differences, and to fight for a common cause. The Avengers, in their own way, embodied the belief that even in the face of division and discord, there is strength in unity. As the Avengers' story unfolded, their roster grew, bringing in new members who would become as vital to the team as the founding members. Vision, a synthetic being of extraordinary intelligence, Scarlet Witch, with her reality bending powers, Hawkeye, the sharpshooter with a heart of gold, and later, characters like Black Panther, Doctor Strange, and Spider Man would join the ranks, further proving that the Avengers were not just a team of individuals, they were a family, one bound not by blood, but by a shared commitment to justice, peace, and protection. Throughout their many trials, the Avengers faced foes who were as diverse as they were formidable. From the cosmic threat of Thanos, whose desire to reshape the universe put the entire existence at risk, to Ultron, a rogue AI with a twisted vision of humanity's future, the Avengers' enemies were often as complex and multifaceted as the heroes themselves. Yet in each battle, the Avengers stood together, their unity and resolve shining through even in the darkest of times. But what truly made the Avengers special was not their strength or their powers, it was their hearts. Each member of the team, despite their heroic abilities, carried their own burdens. Captain America's struggle to adapt to a world that had moved on without him, Iron Man's constant battle with his own demons, the Hulk's desire to control his inner rage, Black Widow's past, filled with secrets and sacrifice. These were the things that made them real, that made their victories meaningful. Through their struggles, the Avengers proved that heroism is not about being invincible, it's about continuing to fight, even when the odds seem impossible. It's about rising again after every fall, about finding strength in each other, and about never giving up on the hope that together we can make the world a better place. The Avengers taught us that we all have a role to play, that we all have something to offer, and that even the most unlikely of heroes can make a difference. The Avengers are a reminder that no matter how different we may seem, we are all capable of coming together for the greater good. And in that unity, we can find strength, hope, and the courage to face even the most daunting of challenges. Tony Stark's story is one of transformation, not just from a playboy billionaire to a superhero, but from a man trapped in his own ego to one who would embrace his purpose in a world that desperately needed saving. The story of Iron Man began in 1963 in the midst of a rapidly changing world. Tony Stark, a genius inventor and industrialist, had it all: wealth, fame, and the freedom to live life on his own terms. Yet beneath the polished surface of his life lay a man who struggled with his own vulnerabilities, his sense of guilt, and the need for purpose. Tony's transformation into Iron Man came after a life-altering experience. While in Vietnam, later updated to Afghanistan in the modern retellings, he was captured by terrorists, a prisoner of war who had been forced to build weapons of mass destruction. But instead of succumbing to despair, Tony's intellect and resourcefulness led him to create a powerful suit of armor, designed both to save his life and to escape his captors. It was this suit, the first iteration of Iron Man, that would become a symbol of hope and a tool for redemption. The journey of Tony Stark as Iron Man was not just about defeating villains or saving the world. It was about confronting his own demons, facing the consequences of his actions, and ultimately finding a deeper sense of responsibility. As a weapons manufacturer, Stark had unknowingly been part of the destruction he sought to avoid, and his path as Iron Man was a quiet journey toward redemption. His quest was not only to protect the world from threats, but to right the wrongs of his past and ensure that his inventions were used for good rather than destruction. In the early days, Stark's journey as Iron Man was marked by his inner conflict. On the outside, he was a billionaire playboy, a man with charisma and confidence. But inside, he was struggling to come to terms with the weapons he had built, the lives they had destroyed, and his own role in shaping the world's conflicts. It was this duality, his public persona and his private turmoil, that made Iron Man's story so compelling. Tony Stark was a man who was constantly at odds with himself, trying to reconcile his past with his present and create a future that would be worthy of the hero he had become. As Iron Man, Tony faced powerful adversaries, many of whom were linked to his own past. The villainous Mandarin, with his 10 rings of power, and the genius engineer Obadiah Stane, who betrayed Tony in his own company. Yet these villains were not just physical threats, they represented the ghosts of Tony's past, his unresolved guilt, and the weight of the choices he had made. Each battle Tony fought was as much about his internal struggle as it was about defeating these external enemies. Iron Man's story was one of growth, not only in his armor, but in his character, as he learned the true meaning of sacrifice, loyalty, and courage. One of the most defining aspects of Tony Stark as Iron Man was his ability to evolve. With each new iteration of his suit, Tony not only enhanced his physical strength, but also grew emotionally. He became more aware of his own shortcomings, his flaws, and the ways in which he could improve, not just as Iron Man, but as a man. Through his relationships with others, particularly his bond with Steve Rogers, Captain America, Tony learned the value of trust, teamwork, and the power of humility. He realized that being a hero was not about doing everything on your own, but about working with others, about putting the needs of the world above your own desires. The heart of Iron Man's story lies in Tony Stark's evolution from a man obsessed with his own brilliance to one who understood the weight of his responsibilities. His journey was about learning to be humble, to acknowledge the impact of his actions, and to find redemption through self-sacrifice. Iron Man became more than just a superhero. He became a symbol of personal growth, of redemption, and of the idea that no matter how far we fall, there is always a path back to doing what is right. Tony Stark's transformation into Iron Man was not just about donning a suit of armor. It was about discovering that true strength lies not in the ability to build machines or defeat enemies, but in the courage to confront one's own flaws, to learn from the past, and to strive to be better every day. His legacy as Iron Man is a reminder that heroism is not born from perfection, but from the willingness to change, to grow, and to embrace the responsibility that comes with great power. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, has always been one of the most fascinating and beloved characters in the Marvel Universe. His story begins in the ancient realm of Asgard, a kingdom of gods and immortals that existed beyond the mortal realm. Thor's journey, both as a god and as a hero, is one of growth, humility, and self discovery. A tale of learning what it truly means to wield power, to be a leader, and to understand the weight of responsibility. Born to Odin, the All-Father, Thor was raised in the halls of Asgard, destined to inherit his father's throne. From a young age, he was strong, brave, and skilled in combat. But Thor's greatest flaw at the beginning of his story was his arrogance. He was quick to anger, proud of his strength, and convinced of his superiority over others, including those who lived outside Asgard's golden walls. In many ways, Thor's journey mirrors that of many who are born into privilege. He had to learn that his strength was not a gift for him to use recklessly, but a responsibility he needed to understand and respect. This lesson came when Thor was banished from Asgard to Earth, stripped of his power, and forced to live as a mere mortal. His father, Odin, sought to teach him humility, showing him that being a king was not about wielding power, but about serving others. It was in these humble moments on Earth that Thor began to change, learning that his strength was not the measure of his worth. He learned to appreciate the small, everyday acts of kindness, courage, and sacrifice that defined humanity. It was also on Earth that Thor truly became the hero we know today. Upon regaining his powers and his hammer, Mjolnir, he learned that his purpose was not just to defend Asgard, but to protect all of existence, to fight for justice, and to understand the complexities of the universe. He was no longer the impulsive warrior driven by pride. He was a protector, a god who had learned the value of wisdom, patience, and selflessness. Thor's relationship with his family, especially his father Odin, is central to his story. Odin, though a wise and powerful leader, is not without his own flaws. He is often distant, and his methods of teaching Thor can seem harsh, but it is through this tough love that Thor learns the greatest lessons. Odin's death, which eventually comes, is a turning point in Thor's journey. It forces Thor to step into his own role as king, to assume the responsibility of leadership, and to learn what it means to truly protect his people. But Thor's story is not just about the gods of Asgard. It is also about the relationships he forms with mortals and other heroes. One of the most important friendships Thor has is with Captain America. Their bond is one of mutual respect, each man understanding the other's burdens and responsibilities. Thor's friendship with Iron Man, though marked by differences in perspective, also brings out his best qualities: his willingness to trust, to fight alongside others, and to sacrifice for the greater good. Thor's journey is also deeply connected to his greatest enemy, Loki, his adoptive brother. The rivalry between Thor and Loki is one of the most compelling and emotional aspects of Thor's story. Loki, the god of mischief, is a constant source of chaos and conflict, but their relationship is complex. Thor loves his brother, but Loki's jealousy and bitterness often lead to betrayal. Loki's actions force Thor to confront his own limitations, and in many ways, Loki is the mirror that reflects Thor's own flaws. Their dynamic is one of love and resentment, of trust and betrayal, and it is through Loki's actions that Thor learns to become a true leader, someone who must face the darkness, both in others and within himself. Thor's story is also a cosmic one, reaching across realms and dimensions. From Asgard to Midgard, Earth, and even the realms beyond, Thor's adventures take him to places both grand and terrifying. The story of the Ragnarok, the end of the world, is a constant shadow that looms over Thor. It is a prophecy that foretells the destruction of Asgard, but Thor's journey teaches him that even in the face of doom, there is hope. He learns that it is not the end that defines us, but how we live in the moments we are given. Thor's ability to fight against fate, to challenge the prophecy of Ragnarok, shows us that even the gods are not powerless in the face of destiny. In the end, Thor's story is one of transformation, of realizing that true strength lies not in the power we wield, but in the wisdom we gain, the humility we embrace, and the love we share with those we protect. He learns that being a hero is not about being invincible, it is about rising again and again to meet the challenges that life throws at us. Thor, the god of thunder, is a reminder that no matter how powerful we are, we must always strive to be better, to be kinder, and to be the kind of leader who serves, not commands. Captain America's story is one that transcends time, a story about honor, duty, and the timeless battle between right and wrong. His journey, from a frail young man to the symbol of American ideals, is one of courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering belief in the greater good. Born as Steve Rogers in the 1920s, Captain America's origins are deeply rooted in the values of his time. In the midst of a world torn by war, Steve Rogers was a man who believed in doing what was right, even if it meant sacrificing his own safety. Steve's transformation into Captain America came not through his own ambition, but through a deep desire to serve. A weak and sickly man, Steve was initially rejected by the U.S. Army, but his spirit, the integrity of his heart, was undeniable. He became the perfect candidate for the super soldier serum, a project designed to create a hero who could stand against the greatest threats of the time. The transformation that followed made Steve Rogers into a symbol of strength, resilience, and hope, a shining example of the ideals he held dear. But Captain America's story is not just about physical power or heroism. It's about the moral compass that guides him through the darkest of times. Throughout his adventures, Steve Rogers faced not only external threats, but internal struggles. The world around him changed, and so too did the nature of the battles he fought. From World War II to the modern age, Captain America's journey was marked by moments of doubt, moments where he questioned his place in a world that had evolved far beyond what he knew. His time spent frozen in ice, lost to history for decades, was not just a physical loss, it was a profound emotional one. Captain America awoke to a world that no longer understood the values he had fought for. His struggle to adapt to this new world, to find his place in a society that had moved on without him, is one of the most poignant aspects of his character. He was not just fighting physical battles, he was fighting against a world that no longer seemed to hold the same ideals that had once inspired him. But even in this new, complicated world, Captain America remained steadfast in his beliefs. He was a symbol of moral clarity in a world that often seemed morally ambiguous. His shield, a symbol of protection, became a symbol of his unwavering resolve. It was not just a weapon, it was a reminder of his mission to protect the innocent, to fight for freedom, and to uphold justice. One of the key aspects of Captain America's character is his leadership. As the leader of the Avengers, Captain America embodies the qualities that make a great leader: courage, wisdom, and most importantly, the ability to inspire others. His team, composed of individuals with powers and personalities as varied as the stars, looks to him not just as a leader, but as a moral center. Steve Rogers, with all his vulnerabilities and uncertainties, shows us that true leadership is not about perfection. It's about being willing to stand up for what is right, even when it's difficult, and guiding others toward the same ideals. Yet Captain America is not without his flaws. His unwavering belief in doing what is right sometimes leads him to difficult decisions where he must choose between the greater good and the personal costs. His relationship with Tony Stark, Iron Man, is a testament to this. Both men, though allies, often find themselves on opposite sides of moral and philosophical divides. The tension between their differing approaches to heroism and leadership is one of the most complex and emotional aspects of the Marvel Universe. Despite his imperfections, Captain America remains a figure of inspiration. He is a hero not because of his strength, but because of his heart. His belief in the goodness of humanity, his willingness to fight for what is right, and his desire to protect those who cannot protect themselves make him an enduring symbol of hope. Even when faced with impossible odds, even when the world seems on the brink of collapse, Captain America never gives up. He continues to fight, to lead, and to inspire. Captain America's journey is a reminder that true heroism comes not from the powers we wield, but from the choices we make. It's about standing firm in our beliefs, even when the world around us shifts. It's about the quiet strength of doing what's right, even when no one is watching. Captain America is not just a hero of his time, he is a hero for all ages, a figure who represents the best of us all, no matter the era. The story of T'Challa, the Black Panther, is one of strength, legacy, and cultural pride. Born into royalty in the African nation of Wakanda, T'Challa's journey is deeply intertwined with the history and values of his people, a journey that sees him rise from a young prince to the king of a hidden kingdom full of technological wonders. The tale of Black Panther is more than just the story of a superhero. It is the story of a man coming into his own, understanding his responsibilities, and protecting a nation while embracing the weight of his legacy. Wakanda, the fictional African kingdom that serves as the backdrop for T'Challa's rise, is one of the most technologically advanced nations in the Marvel Universe, a place where vibranium, the strongest metal in the world, was hidden from the rest of humanity. It is a land that has remained isolated from the outside world, thriving in secret while the rest of the world struggled with conflict, colonization, and inequality. Wakanda's isolation, however, has kept its secrets and its vibranium out of the hands of those who might use it to exploit or destroy. As the heir to the throne, T'Challa was always destined to lead this powerful and mysterious nation, but his journey toward the throne was not an easy one. The transition from prince to king came in the wake of tragedy. T'Challa's father, King T'Chaka, was killed during an attack that would set off a series of events that would shape not only Wakanda's future, but T'Challa's own journey. With his father's death, T'Challa was forced to assume the mantle of Black Panther, the protector of Wakanda. The role of Black Panther is not just that of a warrior. It is the spiritual and political leader of the nation, someone who must balance tradition with progress, leadership with humility. It is in this delicate balance that T'Challa's true story begins. T'Challa's first major trial came when he faced the challenge of his cousin, Eric Killmonger, who had been exiled as a child and returned to Wakanda with a thirst for revenge. Killmonger's motivations were driven by the desire to use Wakanda's technology to arm oppressed people around the world, particularly black people in America, who had been subjected to systemic injustice and violence. While his methods were extreme, Killmonger's argument that Wakanda had been too quiet, too isolated, and that its resources should be used to empower the disenfranchised was one that struck a chord with many. This ideological clash between T'Challa and Killmonger was not just a battle for the throne, it was a struggle for what Wakanda's future would look like. Would it remain a secret nation, guarding its resources from the outside world, or would it use its power to make a difference on a global scale? The battle between these two cousins was one of tradition versus revolution, isolation versus global influence. It was a conflict that mirrored many of the struggles faced by nations and peoples around the world, making Black Panther's story not just personal, but global. Through this conflict, T'Challa was forced to reevaluate his role as both king and protector. His journey was not just about defeating an enemy, it was about understanding the complexity of leadership, the necessity of change, and the responsibility that comes with great power. T'Challa's transformation from a prince who relied on the old ways to a king who embraced a new, more open vision for Wakanda was a central theme of his story. In the end, T'Challa chose to open Wakanda's borders, to share its knowledge and resources with the world, in the hopes of building a better future for all. But T'Challa's journey is not just political, it is also deeply personal. As Black Panther, T'Challa faces numerous challenges, from threats to his throne to the constant burden of living up to his father's legacy. His relationships with those closest to him, Shuri, his sister and tech genius, Nakia, his love interest and a fierce warrior, and Okoye, the head of the Dora Milaje, Wakanda's elite female warriors, are central to his growth. These relationships ground T'Challa, reminding him that leadership is not just about power, but about service to others, about loyalty, love, and sacrifice. T'Challa's story is also a reflection of the broader African diaspora. He is a symbol of pride, strength, and unity, not just for Wakanda, but for all people of African descent. His journey from the hidden heart of Africa to the global stage speaks to the importance of heritage, of understanding where we come from, and of the need to build a better future for those who come after us. Black Panther is more than just a superhero. He is a representation of empowerment, of what it means to rise above adversity and to fight for what is right no matter the cost. The legacy of Black Panther is one that resonates far beyond the fictional pages of Marvel Comics. It is a legacy of hope, of leadership, and of a commitment to making the world a better place, not through violence or conquest, but through wisdom, compassion, and understanding. T'Challa's journey reminds us that true strength comes not from the weapons we wield, but from the choices we make and the lives we touch along the way. The story of the Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the most unconventional and heartwarming tales in the Marvel universe, a journey that begins not with a team of heroes, but with a group of outcasts, misfits, and rogues who are as unlikely to save the universe as they are to form any kind of lasting bond. And yet, their story proves that even the most disparate individuals can come together to form something truly extraordinary, a family. The Guardians' origins are rooted in the story of Peter Quill, a young boy who is abducted from Earth in the 1980s after his mother's death. Raised by a group of space pirates known as the Ravagers, Peter grows into a charming, albeit reckless outlaw known as Star-Lord. His journey is one of personal loss, but also of self discovery as he grapples with the memory of his mother, the nature of his true heritage, and his place in the vastness of space. His life, filled with adventure, music from his past, and the constant need for escape, is transformed when he inadvertently steals an artifact that becomes the key to a cosmic battle for power. It is through this seemingly small act that Peter Quill finds himself at the center of something much larger than himself. A group of individuals who, despite their differences, would come together to form the Guardians of the Galaxy. At first, the team consists of a motley crew: Gamora, an assassin raised by the tyrannical warlord Thanos; Drax, a warrior whose family was destroyed by Thanos and who seeks vengeance above all else; Rocket, a genetically modified raccoon with a sharp tongue and an even sharper wit; and Groot, a sentient tree like being whose vocabulary is limited to the words, "I am Groot." Individually, each of these characters is flawed, driven by personal pain, guilt, and loss. Gamora is seeking redemption for her past as a killer, while Drax is consumed by the desire for revenge. Rocket, despite his sharp intelligence and bravado, struggles with deep loneliness and self-worth. Groot, though seemingly simple, shares an unspoken wisdom and loyalty that often surpasses the others. Together, they are chaotic and dysfunctional and often at odds with each other. Yet they are united by the recognition that they all have something to fight for, a greater cause, and a need to find connection and purpose. As the Guardians' journey unfolds, they face adversaries that range from the power-hungry Ronan the Accuser to the cosmic desolation of their own individual pasts. However, it is not the battles they fight that define them, but the way in which they grow, learn, and come to rely on one another. They come to realize that despite their seemingly selfish motivations, they are capable of more than they ever imagined. Over time, the Guardians become more than just a team. They become a family with all the love, conflict, and sacrifice that comes with it. The heart of the Guardians' story lies in the friendships they forge, particularly the unlikely bond between Peter Quill and his team. Peter's journey, which begins with an almost childlike desire to escape his responsibilities and memories, evolves into one of acceptance. He learns to let go of his past pain and accept the people around him, finding in them the family he never thought he needed. Rocket's arc is one of the most poignant as he grapples with his own identity as a genetically engineered being. His journey is about overcoming his own bitterness and learning that he does not have to be alone. In many ways, the Guardians are a reflection of the flawed, messy nature of life itself. They are a group of individuals who at first glance seem to have little in common. Yet through their struggles and their adventures, they come to realize that they each have something to offer, something that makes them unique and vital to the success of their mission. Together, they show us that family is not defined by blood. It is defined by loyalty, by the willingness to stand by one another, and by the understanding that sometimes the people we need the most are the ones we least expect. Their story is one of humor and heart, of sacrifice and survival, and of the joy that comes from finding your place in the world, even when you feel like you don't belong. The Guardians of the Galaxy teach us that sometimes the greatest power lies not in strength, but in the bonds we create with others. They remind us that even the most broken individuals can come together to accomplish something greater than themselves, and that even in the darkest corners of the universe, there is light if we are willing to find it. Through their journey, the Guardians show us that being a hero is not about being perfect. It is about trying, failing, and getting back up again. It's about finding your family, whether that family is made of blood or not, and realizing that together we can overcome even the most impossible odds. The Guardians are not just a team, they are a testament to the power of unity, of friendship, and of the enduring strength of the human spirit. Dr. Stephen Strange's journey from brilliant neurosurgeon to the Sorcerer Supreme is one of the most transformative and mystical tales in the Marvel Universe. His story is not one of traditional heroism, but one of self discovery, humility, and a deep understanding of the forces that shape reality itself. Doctor Strange's evolution is not just a physical transformation, but a spiritual and philosophical one. A journey that takes him beyond the material world and into the realm of the mystical, where the boundaries of life and death, good and evil, are far from clear. Before becoming Doctor Strange, Stephen Strange was a renowned but arrogant neurosurgeon whose skill was matched only by his pride. He was a man who believed in the power of logic and science, a man who trusted in his own brilliance and controlled the world around him through his intellect. His life, while full of accolades, was defined by a single flaw: his ego. But all of this changed in a moment when a tragic car accident left him with hands that were shattered beyond repair, unable to perform surgery ever again. It was in the depths of despair, after trying and failing to find a cure for his hands through every medical means, that Strange's path took a fateful turn. Desperate for healing, he sought out mystical practices, traveling across the world to find a way to mend his broken body. It was here that he encountered the Ancient One, a powerful sorcerer who saw potential in Strange, not just in his abilities, but in his heart. The Ancient One took Strange under his wing, teaching him not only how to heal his hands, but how to transcend the physical world altogether. Strange's journey as a sorcerer was not an easy one. It required him to relinquish the pride that had once defined him, to embrace the unknown, and to understand that there are forces beyond human comprehension. He learned to manipulate the mystical energies of the universe, to open portals to other dimensions, to bend time and space to his will. Yet despite his growing power, he never fully abandoned the ego that had defined him as a doctor. In many ways, Strange's journey was one of constant struggle, as he had to reconcile his old identity with the new one being forged by his magical training. The turning point in Doctor Strange's story came when he was called upon to protect the Earth from mystical threats, including the powerful Dormammu, a being of immense cosmic power. Dormammu's presence in the dark dimension posed a threat to not only Earth, but the entire universe. In confronting Dormammu, Strange was forced to make the ultimate sacrifice. He used his intellect, not his strength, to outwit Dormammu, trapping him in a never-ending loop of time. This victory was not about brute force. It was about the power of the mind, of understanding the true nature of the universe, and using that knowledge to shape reality itself. What sets Doctor Strange apart from other Marvel heroes is the way in which he navigates the mystical realms. His story is not just about defeating evil, it is about understanding the delicate balance between the seen and the unseen, the material and the spiritual. Strange's powers are not rooted in strength or speed, but in his deep understanding of the mystical forces that govern the universe. His abilities are a reflection of his growth as a person, from a man obsessed with his own abilities to a humble servant of the greater good. Doctor Strange's greatest strength lies not in his magical prowess, but in his ability to think beyond the confines of the physical world. He is a master of the mystic arts, but more importantly, he is a master of perspective. He understands that reality is not always what it seems, that the boundaries between life and death, good and evil, are often blurred. This makes him one of the most powerful and dangerous figures in the Marvel Universe, not because of the spells he can cast, but because of the wisdom he has gained through his journey. Throughout his story, Doctor Strange is confronted by powerful foes, but perhaps his greatest enemy is himself. The ego that once defined him as a surgeon is constantly at odds with his role as the Sorcerer Supreme. He is forced to confront his own fears, his doubts, and his insecurities. But through these challenges, Strange learns that true power is not about control. It is about acceptance, humility, and the ability to recognize the interconnectedness of all things. He learns that in order to protect the universe, he must first protect his own heart and mind, and that true wisdom comes from understanding the mysteries of the universe, not just mastering them. In the end, Doctor Strange's story is one of redemption, a journey from arrogance to humility, from a man who sought control over life and death to one who understood the delicate balance between all things. His powers are not a gift to be used recklessly, but a responsibility to be wielded with care, wisdom, and compassion. Doctor Strange's legacy is one of self mastery, of recognizing that true strength comes not from the ability to manipulate the world around us, but from the wisdom to see beyond the illusion of control and understand the interconnected nature of all things. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, is one of the most complex and intriguing characters in the Marvel Universe. Her story is one of redemption, self discovery, and a quest for identity in a world that has often used her as a tool. Born in the chaos of post World War II Russia, Natasha was raised and trained by the Soviet Union to become one of its most elite assassins. Her life, shaped by manipulation, espionage, and secrets, was far from the conventional path of a hero. Yet it is in this very darkness that she begins her journey toward becoming one of the world's most trusted and courageous Avengers. The Black Widow's origins are steeped in secrecy. Trained from a young age by the KGB, Natasha was taught to be a weapon, an expert in combat, espionage, and assassination. Her story, however, is not one of blind loyalty to the regime, but one of survival. From a young age, she learned that trust was a luxury she could not afford, and that her skills were both a gift and a curse. The training she underwent in the Red Room, a secret Soviet program designed to create super spies, left deep emotional scars, shaping her into the complex woman she would become. Natasha's past is filled with regret and loss, much of it tied to the dark actions she was forced to commit as an agent. Her early life was marked by manipulation and betrayal, and her initial belief in the ideals of the Soviet Union was gradually shattered as she realized the true cost of her loyalty. Over time, she grew disillusioned with the life she had been forced into, and it was this disillusionment that led her to defect to the United States. It was in her defection that Natasha began the difficult process of finding herself, not as a weapon, but as a person. Her transformation from assassin to hero was not an easy one. Natasha's path to redemption was not one of immediate heroism, but a gradual journey toward trust and self acceptance. When she first joined the Avengers, she was still haunted by her past, unsure of her place in a world that often saw her as nothing more than a killer. Yet over time, she began to prove herself, not only as a fierce warrior, but as a loyal and selfless member of the team. Her relationships with her fellow Avengers, particularly with Clint Barton, Hawkeye, were central to her evolution. Clint, who knew her from her past life, became one of the few people who truly understood her struggles, and their bond became a source of strength for Natasha as she navigated her path forward. The Black Widow's story is also one of the most profound examinations of loyalty and sacrifice. Natasha has faced countless challenges, from the threat of her former Russian masters to her battles against global threats like Ultron. Yet, it is not her physical battles that define her. It is her internal struggle, her willingness to confront the darkness within her and to fight for something greater than herself. Natasha's loyalty to her fellow Avengers and to the cause of justice is unwavering, and it is in these moments of sacrifice that her true heroism shines. Natasha's ability to blend into any situation, to be a master of deception, espionage, and combat, made her one of the most invaluable members of the Avengers team. She was often the voice of reason, the calm under pressure, and the one who could navigate through the shadows when the team needed it most. Yet behind this carefully crafted exterior, Natasha was a woman who had seen the worst of the world and had to fight every day to reconcile her past with her desire for a better future. Her relationship with her own identity was one of the most powerful aspects of her story. Natasha's struggle was not just with external threats, but with the very core of who she was. She had been trained to be a weapon, but she longed to be more than that. Over time, she found a sense of purpose not in her past as an assassin, but in her present as a protector of the innocent. Her journey was not just about atoning for her past, but about forging a new identity, one that was based on choice, loyalty, and the courage to fight for what was right, no matter the cost. In her final moments, Natasha's ultimate sacrifice in the pursuit of the Soul Stone during the events of Avengers Endgame brought her full circle, completing her redemption arc. She had spent her life fighting for a cause she believed in, but it was in her selfless act of giving her life to save the universe that she truly became the hero she had always longed to be. Natasha Romanoff's legacy is not just one of a skilled fighter or a former assassin. It is one of strength, redemption, and the quiet, unyielding power of a woman who chose to rise above her past and create her own future. Her story is a reminder that no matter where we come from, no matter the mistakes we've made or the pain we've endured, we all have the power to choose who we become. Natasha Romanoff's transformation from the Black Widow to a true Avenger is a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the capacity for change, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility for redemption. The story of Ant-Man, or rather the stories of two very different men who would carry the mantle of Ant-Man, is one of discovery, redemption, and an exploration of how greatness can come in the most unexpected of forms. At its heart, the tale of Ant-Man is about perspective, not just the physical act of shrinking down to the size of an insect, but the philosophical exploration of how our understanding of the world changes when we see things from a different vantage point. It's a reminder that sometimes our greatest strength lies not in our ability to grow, but in our ability to shrink. The first Ant-Man, Hank Pym, is a brilliant scientist and inventor who created the Pym particles, small particles capable of shrinking or enlarging objects. Pym's invention not only gave him the ability to shrink down to the size of an ant, but also gave him the potential to change the course of history. Hank's legacy, however, is not without its complications. He is a man haunted by his own genius, by the burden of his inventions, and by the way in which his creations are used for both good and ill. Pym's journey as Ant-Man is one of personal struggle, as he balances his ambition with his desire to protect those he loves, all while trying to come to terms with his own mistakes. Hank Pym's most notable creation, however, was not the Pym particles themselves, but the creation of the artificial intelligence, Ultron. In his pursuit of peace and protection for humanity, Pym unknowingly created a force of destruction that would come to challenge the Avengers and nearly annihilate the world. This mistake became the catalyst for Hank's decision to retire as Ant-Man. His greatest creation, Ultron, was born out of the desire to do good, but it quickly spiraled into a symbol of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the unintended consequences of scientific progress. Though Hank Pym's time as Ant-Man was marked by regret and self-doubt, his legacy lived on through Scott Lang, the second person to take on the mantle of Ant-Man. Scott Lang was a far cry from Hank Pym. He was an ex-convict, a man with a checkered past, but one who was deeply motivated by his love for his daughter, Cassie. Scott's journey to becoming Ant-Man was not just about redemption for his past mistakes, but about proving to himself that he could be more than the sum of his actions. When Scott stumbled upon the technology of Hank Pym, he found a new sense of purpose, a chance to use his skills for something greater than himself. Scott Lang's journey as Ant-Man is filled with humor and heart, but it is also one of profound personal growth. Though he lacks the same scientific genius as Hank Pym, Scott proves that even someone with a troubled past can rise to the occasion when given the opportunity. His role in the Marvel Universe is not just about using the Ant-Man suit to shrink and grow, though his physical transformations are certainly thrilling. It is about his journey from being an ordinary man with extraordinary abilities to becoming a hero who can contribute to the protection of the world in meaningful ways. What makes Scott Lang's story so compelling is the way in which he embodies the idea that heroism is not about having the greatest powers, but about what you do with the abilities you have. Scott is not a god, nor a genius inventor, nor a soldier with decades of experience. He is, in many ways, an everyman, a person who, like so many of us, struggles with past mistakes and seeks to create a better future. His heroism comes not from his intelligence or physical prowess, but from his heart, from his willingness to stand up for what is right, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Scott's journey as Ant-Man is also about the bonds he forms with others. His relationship with Hank Pym, initially one of mistrust and tension, grows into one of respect and mentorship. Hank, who had spent so much of his life alone with his inventions and regrets, finds in Scott someone who sees the potential for good in others. Together, the two men show us that legacy is not just about passing down technology, but about passing down wisdom, humility, and the willingness to learn from the mistakes of the past. The legacy of Ant-Man is a reminder that heroism comes in many forms. It is not always about saving the world in a single moment of glory, but about doing the small things, the quiet acts of courage that make a difference in the long run. Ant-Man's power to shrink may seem trivial in comparison to the abilities of other heroes, but it is this very ability to change perspective, to see the world from a different point of view, that makes him a hero. Sometimes, the most important battles we fight are not against external foes, but against the doubts and limitations within ourselves. Through Scott Lang's journey, we also see the importance of family, of love, and of sacrifice. His relationship with his daughter, Cassie, is at the heart of his story. She is the driving force behind his desire to be a better man, and it is for her that he fights, sacrifices, and risks everything. This father daughter bond is one of the most heartwarming aspects of his character, and it reminds us that heroism often begins at home, in the love we share for those closest to us. Ultimately, the legacy of Ant-Man is not just about size or strength. It is about heart, about perspective, and about the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Whether it is Hank, Pym's mistakes, or Scott Lang's redemption, Ant-Man's story teaches us that greatness comes not from perfection, but from the courage to take on the mantle, to learn from our past, and to do what is right no matter the size of the task. The story of Bruce Banner and the Hulk is one of the most tragic and complex tales in the Marvel Universe. It is a story about inner conflict, about the struggle between man and monster, and about the constant quest for redemption in the face of overwhelming power. At its core, the Hulk's narrative is not just about a man who transforms into a powerful green behemoth, but about the deep emotional and psychological toll that power takes on its wielder. Bruce Banner's journey is one of self-discovery, acceptance, and the struggle to find peace within himself, even as he grapples with the monster inside. Bruce Banner was once a brilliant scientist, dedicated to studying gamma radiation. In his search for knowledge and power, Banner was exposed to a gamma bomb he created, and the exposure triggered a mutation that forever altered his life. Whenever Bruce experiences intense emotional stress, he transforms into the Hulk, an enormous, rage-fueled version of himself who possesses incredible strength and invulnerability. For years, Banner tried to control the Hulk, but he quickly learned that the more he fought against the transformation, the more out of control it became. The Hulk was not just a monster, it was a reflection of Banner's deepest fears, his anger, and his trauma. The Hulk's story is ultimately one of duality. Bruce Banner is not a traditional hero. He does not possess the same sense of confidence or leadership that other heroes like Captain America or Tony Stark have. He is often hesitant, self-doubting, and isolated by the very power that makes him formidable. For Banner, the Hulk is a curse, a constant reminder of his inability to control his emotions and the destructive consequences of his own brilliance. While other superheroes revel in their powers, Bruce sees them as a liability, something that distances him from humanity and forces him to live a life of solitude and fear. The Hulk's powers are both a gift and a burden. His immense strength and speed and durability make him nearly unstoppable, and yet they also make him a threat to those around him. For Banner, the struggle is not just about defeating his enemies, it is about the internal battle between his desire for peace and the uncontrollable rage that takes over whenever he becomes the Hulk. This constant conflict creates a psychological tension that defines much of his story. Bruce wants nothing more than to live a quiet, normal life, but he knows that as long as the Hulk exists within him, that life will never be possible. Throughout his journey, Bruce has been forced to come to terms with the Hulk's existence. Initially, he sought every possible way to rid himself of the monster, to cure himself of the mutation that had shattered his life. But over time, Bruce learned that he could not simply erase the Hulk from his existence. Instead, he had to learn to accept both parts of himself, the brilliant scientist and the monstrous creature, and find a way to coexist with them. This acceptance of his duality is one of the most powerful aspects of his character. The Hulk is not simply a curse, it is a part of Bruce Banner's identity, and learning to integrate both sides of himself is the key to his growth. The Hulk's greatest battles are not always fought against villains or external threats. Often, his most significant challenges come from within himself. The emotional and psychological toll of being the Hulk is immense. The monster is often driven by rage, and Bruce must find ways to control it without losing his humanity. This internal conflict is mirrored in the relationships he has with others. Bruce is often isolated because he is afraid of hurting the people he cares about. He does not want to put them in danger, and yet he craves connection. His relationships with other Avengers, especially with characters like Tony Stark and Black Widow, are filled with tension and understanding. They recognize the humanity within him, even when he cannot fully recognize it in himself. The Hulk's story is also one of redemption. While Banner is often tormented by his past mistakes, his journey is ultimately one of learning to use his powers for good. Though he struggles with guilt, shame, and self-loathing, Bruce learns that he can control the Hulk and use its power to protect others. His transformation is symbolic of the idea that even the most flawed individuals can find redemption, even when their actions have caused great harm. The Hulk may be a monster, but Bruce Banner's willingness to fight alongside his fellow heroes is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the possibility of change. What sets the Hulk apart from other Marvel heroes is the complexity of his character. He is not defined by his powers, but by his vulnerability, his struggle with self-acceptance, and his quest to understand who he truly is. Unlike other heroes who are confident in their abilities, the Hulk is marked by self-doubt, guilt, and the constant fear of losing control. His story is not just about triumphing over enemies, it is about triumphing over himself, about finding peace with the aspects of himself that he cannot change. The Hulk teaches us that true strength comes not from physical power, but from emotional resilience, from the ability to confront our darkest fears and learn to live with them. In the end, the legacy of the Hulk is one of understanding and acceptance. It is the story of a man who, despite his flaws and struggles, learns to use his power for good. Bruce Banner's journey is a reminder that the monsters we fear are often a reflection of ourselves, and that true heroism comes not from defeating those monsters, but from learning to live with them and to make peace with our own imperfections. Janet Van Dyne, known as the Wasp, may not have the godly powers of Thor or the immense strength of the Hulk, but her story is one of the most integral and emotionally rich in the Marvel Universe. As one of the original founding members of the Avengers, Janet's legacy is defined not by her physical abilities, but by her heart, her leadership, and the pivotal role she played in shaping the Avengers team into what it would eventually become. Her journey is one of resilience, sacrifice, and the power of collaboration. Janet's story begins in the early days of Marvel, when she was introduced as the brilliant scientist Hank Pym's partner and eventual wife. She was initially portrayed as a strong willed and independent woman, a socialite who had more than just beauty to her name. Her transformation into the Wasp came when she worked with Pym to develop the Pym particles, the same particles that would eventually give him the ability to shrink and grow. Janet, however, also used the Pym particles to alter her own size, allowing her to shrink down to the size of a wasp and grow wings, giving her the ability to fly and fight with unparalleled agility. Her powers, though less dramatic than some of the other Avengers, were uniquely suited to her personality. Janet's skills were not just physical, her quick thinking, resourcefulness, and her ability to inspire and organize others made her an invaluable member of the team. She brought a level of sophistication and finesse to the Avengers, balancing the brawn of other heroes with her own intelligence and compassion. The Wasp's ability to shrink and grow in size was not only an asset in combat, but also a metaphor for her personal journey. Throughout her time with the Avengers, Janet's character evolved, growing from a sidekick to one of the team's most influential and respected leaders. Beyond her physical abilities, Janet's strength lay in her capacity for empathy, courage, and leadership. While other heroes like Captain America and Iron Man had clear-cut paths to leadership, Janet's rise within the Avengers was more subtle. She was never the one to demand attention or the spotlight, but her dedication to the team and her ability to see the good in others made her the heart of the Avengers. Janet was a mentor to many of the younger heroes, guiding them through their personal struggles and showing them the value of teamwork, trust, and sacrifice. Her leadership was marked by compassion, and her belief in the potential of her teammates allowed the Avengers to function as a true family rather than just a team of superheroes. As the Avengers' journey continued, Janet's personal life became intertwined with the team's fate. She was married to Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, but their relationship was fraught with difficulties, including Pym's struggles with his own identity as a hero and the emotional toll of their shared history. Despite the ups and downs of their personal relationship, Janet remained committed to both Pym and the Avengers, proving time and again that her devotion to the greater good was unwavering. The complexity of Janet's character is perhaps most evident in her struggles with identity and self-worth. As a woman in a male-dominated world, Janet often found herself having to prove her value, not just to her fellow Avengers, but to herself. Her power was often underestimated because it was not as overt or destructive as some of her teammates. But over time, she proved that true strength comes in many forms. Janet's emotional resilience, her ability to fight not just external battles, but internal ones, made her one of the most enduring characters in the Marvel Universe. Janet's arc also highlights the importance of growth and healing. Over the years, she faced numerous challenges, from dealing with the fallout of her troubled marriage to Hank Pym to the pressures of being a leader in a constantly shifting team of heroes. Through it all, Janet never lost sight of who she was: strong, compassionate, and committed to making the world a better place. Her journey wasn't about physical transformation, it was about learning to navigate the complexities of human emotion, relationships, and personal growth. Bucky Barnes, also known as the Winter Soldier, is a character whose journey is defined by both tragedy and redemption. His story is one of the deepest emotional arcs in the Marvel Universe, filled with themes of loss, betrayal, and the long road to forgiveness. Bucky's transformation from Captain America's closest friend to a brainwashed assassin, and then his eventual redemption, is one of the most poignant tales of personal struggle and recovery. Bucky Barnes began his journey as a soldier and loyal companion to Steve Rogers during World War II. The two shared a brotherly bond, forged in the chaos of battle and solidified by their mutual respect and friendship. Bucky was always by Steve's side, a reliable and courageous ally who helped to bring the fight to their enemies. But Bucky's life took a devastating turn when he fell during a mission, seemingly to his death, leaving Steve to grieve the loss of his best friend. Unknown to Steve, Bucky had survived, but not in the way he had hoped. He was captured by Hydra, the Nazi organization that had long been a shadowy force in the Marvel Universe, and was turned into the Winter Soldier, a mind-controlled assassin with no memory of his past life. Brainwashed and reprogrammed, Bucky was forced to carry out missions for Hydra, a weapon of destruction with no will of his own. His transformation into the Winter Soldier marked the beginning of a long and painful journey, one that would span decades and cross paths with his old friend, Captain America, in ways neither of them could have foreseen. When Bucky was finally reintroduced to Steve Rogers in the modern era, the man Steve once knew was gone. The Winter Soldier was cold, calculating, and ruthless, a shadow of the friend Steve had lost. Their reunion was both painful and heartbreaking, as Steve had to confront the reality that the man he had once fought alongside was now his enemy. The Winter Soldier was not just a physical threat, it was a representation of Steve's deepest loss, of the memories of a time and a person that could never be fully recovered. Yet despite Bucky's years of manipulation and violence, there remained a part of him that Steve could not abandon. Deep down, the Winter Soldier was still Bucky, his memories locked away, his humanity buried beneath layers of conditioning. Steve refused to give up on his friend, and that refusal to let go would be the catalyst for Bucky's eventual redemption. Bucky's journey back to himself was a difficult and painful one. It was not enough to simply reclaim his memories. He had to reckon with the things he had done as the Winter Soldier, the lives he had taken, and the choices he had made while under Hydra's control. It was this internal battle, this struggle between the man he had been and the man he had become, that defined Bucky's path toward redemption. It was a story about forgiveness, not just from others, but from himself. The Winter Soldier was a man who had been robbed of his identity, and in order to reclaim it, he had to first face the darkest parts of his soul. Bucky's struggle to regain his humanity was not just about forgetting the past, it was about coming to terms with it. His relationship with Steve Rogers was central to this process. Steve believed in Bucky, even when Bucky couldn't believe in himself. Steve's refusal to see his friend as just a weapon or a villain gave Bucky the strength to begin his journey of healing. Their bond was a lifeline for Bucky, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was still the possibility of redemption. As Bucky worked to reclaim his life, he found that his journey was not just about fighting the battles of his past. It was about finding new purpose, new meaning, and new ways to contribute to the greater good. His time with the Avengers and his eventual acceptance of his role as a protector rather than a weapon marked his transformation. The Winter Soldier had become Bucky Barnes again, a man who had faced his demons, accepted the consequences of his actions, and chosen to fight for something greater than revenge. Bucky's story is one of personal redemption and the possibility of change, no matter how far we may have fallen. His struggle is universal, the struggle to reconcile the person we were with the person we have become. His story teaches us that our past does not define us, that even the darkest of actions can be forgiven if we are willing to make amends. It is a reminder that we are all capable of growth and change, that we are not bound by our mistakes, but by our willingness to learn from them and to move forward. In the end, Bucky Barnes's journey is about overcoming the shadows of the past and stepping into the light. It is about finding hope in the most unlikely of places and learning that redemption is not about erasing the past, but about forging a new future. His transformation from the Winter Soldier to a hero once again is one of the most powerful stories of personal growth and the enduring power of friendship, loyalty, and love. The Eternals are among the most mysterious and powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, ancient gods who have quietly shaped the course of human history. Created by the Celestials, cosmic beings of immense power, the Eternals were designed to be the ultimate guardians of humanity. Yet despite their godlike abilities, the Eternals have always existed in the shadows of history, watching over Earth's inhabitants, protecting them from hidden threats, and at times intervening in events that could alter the course of civilization. Their story is one of timelessness, of cosmic responsibility, and of the eternal struggle between creation and destruction. The Eternals' origins trace back to the dawn of humanity, when the Celestials came to Earth to experiment with the evolution of life. The Celestials genetically engineered two distinct groups, Eternals and Deviants, to coexist on Earth, but over time, the Eternals became the protectors, while the Deviants became the dangerous, destructive force that threatened humanity. The Eternals were designed to possess immense power, each with unique abilities that reflected their divine origins. From manipulating energy to controlling matter, the Eternals' abilities were far beyond those of any human or mutant, and yet they were bound by the unspoken rule of never interfering too directly in human affairs. Among the Eternals, there are several key figures who stand out. Icarus, one of the most powerful and stalwart of the Eternals, is often viewed as the embodiment of their ideals, honorable, strong, and committed to their mission of safeguarding Earth. Circe, on the other hand, is known for her mischievous nature, her love of human culture, and her ability to manipulate matter. Then there's Thena, a fierce warrior with unmatched combat abilities, and Kingo, who channels his cosmic powers into the art of film, making him one of the most beloved figures among Earth's people. Each of the Eternals is unique, and each plays an important role in the complex web of their cosmic mission. Despite their incredible power, the Eternals are not immune to the complexities of emotion and doubt. They have lived for millennia, watching civilizations rise and fall, witnessing the constant cycle of human triumphs and tragedies. Over time, many of them have come to question the Celestials' original directive to remain detached from human affairs. Some have grown disillusioned with the Celestials' indifference toward humanity, while others have struggled with their role as eternal watchers, knowing they can never fully experience the depth of human life or the fleeting nature of human existence. The Eternal's immortality, while a source of great power, is also a source of pain and isolation. Their greatest internal struggle is their relationship with the deviants, their dark counterparts. The deviants, genetically altered to be unpredictable and dangerous, are in constant conflict with the Eternals. This conflict is not just external, it is deeply personal. For many of the Eternals, the deviants represent the darker side of their own nature, those aspects of themselves that they would rather forget. Over the centuries, the Eternals have had to confront not only the external threats posed by the deviants, but also the internal moral dilemmas surrounding their relationship with them. Are they truly the protectors of humanity, or are they merely another form of oppression, keeping the deviants at bay while letting the world continue its cycle of violence and destruction? The Eternal story is also one of loyalty and sacrifice. Though they are gods, they are not free from the bonds of family and love. Their relationships with one another, both romantic and platonic, are what give their story its emotional depth. Icarus and Circe, for example, share a complex relationship, one that is built on centuries of trust, but also torn by differing ideologies. While Icarus holds tightly to the Celestials' vision, Circe has come to embrace the beauty of human life and the potential for change within humanity. This ideological rift is what ultimately drives the Eternals' greatest conflicts, forcing them to choose between loyalty to their divine creators and the desire to shape their own destinies. Despite their eternal nature, the Eternals are also deeply affected by their interactions with humans. Their long lifespans give them a unique perspective on the fleeting nature of human existence, and it is through their relationships with Earth's inhabitants that they come to understand their own purpose. For many of the Eternals, this connection to humanity is what grounds them, even as they witness the passage of time and the eventual decline of the civilizations they have watched over. In a world where everything is constantly in flux, the Eternals are reminded that despite their power and immortality, they too are part of a greater cycle of life and death. The Eternals' story is one of cosmic wonder and existential questioning. They are gods, yet they are not invulnerable to the same doubts and fears that plague all living beings. They have watched the universe change, but in the end, they must confront the reality that they too are bound by time, by the choices they make, and by the consequences of their actions. Their journey is not just about defending Earth or preserving the balance of the cosmos. It is about finding meaning in a universe that is vast, unknowable, and ever changing. In the end, the Eternals are a reminder that even the most powerful beings are not exempt from the questions of purpose, love, and sacrifice. They are not just gods looking down on humanity, they are beings who are learning to live, to grow, and to find their place in the universe, even as they witness the world around them evolve and change. Their story teaches us that even the eternal must change, that even the gods must learn what it means to be human, to care, and to find meaning in the fleeting moments that make up existence. The Secret Wars stand as one of the most intricate and far reaching events in the Marvel Universe, a storyline where the boundaries of reality itself were tested, reshaped, and completely upended. It is a tale of cosmic conflict and manipulation, where the fate of entire universes hangs in the balance. But beneath the grandiose battles and the cosmic scale, the Secret Wars also explore themes of identity, choice, and the nature of power. At the heart of the story is a force far greater than any hero or villain, an entity capable of bending the very fabric of reality to its will. The event, first introduced in the mid 1980s, begins when the mysterious and all powerful being known as the Beyonder takes an interest in Earth and its inhabitants. Drawn to the concept of good and evil, the Beyonder brings a group of Marvel's most prominent heroes and villains to a distant, artificial planet known as Battleworld. Here, the Beyonder creates a vast arena for a battle royale, a competition between the forces of good and evil that will determine the fate of the multiverse itself. What makes the Secret Wars so compelling is not just the sheer scale of the conflict, but the way in which it distills the motivations and desires of the characters involved. Heroes like Spider-Man, Captain America, and Iron Man find themselves faced with the most difficult choices they've ever encountered. Villains like Doctor Doom, Magneto, and Kong the Conqueror are forced to confront their own ambitions and egos. The battle is not just one of physical power, but one of moral conviction. Can the heroes hold on to their ideals when they are tested in ways they've never been before? And can the villains find redemption, or is their hunger for power too great to overcome? For many of the characters involved, the Secret Wars challenge not just their physical strength, but their very sense of self. Spider-Man, for example, faces an intense internal struggle as he grapples with the weight of the responsibility that comes with being a hero. In one of the most pivotal moments of the event, Spider-Man obtains the black suit that will later become Venom, an event that alters not only his own character, but the future of his entire legacy. The black suit represents both power and corruption, a reflection of the conflict within Peter Parker himself. It's a symbol of how even the most well-intentioned can be swayed by the temptations of power. Captain America and Iron Man also find their beliefs tested in new ways. Captain America, always the symbol of moral clarity, is forced to lead his team in the most chaotic and unstable of circumstances. He is challenged not just by the physical battles they face, but by the moral compromises that come with leadership. Iron Man, ever the strategist and pragmatist, is confronted with a similar dilemma. His intellect and resourcefulness are pushed to their limits as he navigates the murky waters of survival and loyalty. Perhaps the most complex figure in the Secret Wars is Doctor Doom, the villain whose arrogance and desire for power have defined much of his life, is faced with the opportunity to reshape reality itself. Throughout the event, Doom grapples with his own ego, as well as his desire to be more than just a conqueror. His arc represents the potential for redemption, even in the most unlikely of characters. Doctor Doom's struggle with his identity as both a ruler and a man who wishes to be revered as a god speaks to the heart of the event. How power, no matter how absolute, cannot provide the peace or satisfaction that one seeks unless it is balanced with humility and a true understanding of oneself. What truly sets the Secret Wars apart, however, is the existential question it poses. What happens when reality itself is at stake? Throughout the event, the fabric of the Marvel Universe is torn apart and reshaped in ways that affect everything from time to space, from the relationships between characters to the very laws that govern the universe. The Beyonder, in his godlike capacity, manipulates the heroes and villains as mere pawns, testing the limits of their resilience and their convictions. Yet it is the consequences of these actions, the realization that their reality is malleable, that their very existence could be undone, that forces the characters to confront their own desires, regrets, and motivations. The Secret Wars are ultimately a reflection of the ultimate conflict that exists within all of us. The battle between power and humility, self interest and altruism, reality and illusion. The event forces the characters involved to ask fundamental questions about the nature of their lives and their purpose. As the battles rage on, the characters must choose between their desire for victory and their commitment to the greater good. They must decide whether to bend reality to their will or to accept the reality they have, with all of its flaws and imperfections. The significance of the Secret Wars cannot be overstated. In many ways, it serves as a turning point in the Marvel Universe, reshaping the relationships between characters and setting the stage for future events. It is a reminder that the very nature of reality is fluid and that our understanding of who we are and what we stand for is constantly shifting. The heroes and villains who participated in the Secret Wars were forever changed by the experience, and so too was the universe they inhabited. At its core, the Secret Wars are about the choices we make when faced with overwhelming power and the consequences of those choices. It is a story about the complexity of identity, the fragility of reality, and the power of conviction in the face of impossible odds. The events of the Secret Wars ripple through the Marvel Universe, leaving a lasting impact on the characters who were involved and on the world they fought to protect. Marvel's universe, vast and expansive, is filled not only with heroes, but with some of the most iconic and complex villains ever created in comic book history. These figures are not just defined by their malevolent actions, but by the intricate motivations and deeply human emotions that drive them. In many ways, Marvel's villains are just as important, if not more so, than their heroic counterparts. They are the counterbalance to the light, the shadows that challenge the very ideals of justice, morality, and power. Through their battles with the heroes, the villains of the Marvel Universe explore the darkness within the human soul, as well as the eternal struggle between good and evil. At the forefront of Marvel's villains is Loki, the god of mischief. Though he is often seen as a source of comic relief in his most mischievous forms, Loki's character is steeped in tragedy and deep emotional conflict. Born as the adopted son of Odin and raised alongside his brother, Thor, Loki's life has been marked by jealousy and a desire for power. His villainy is not simply a product of evil. Loki's actions are driven by an overwhelming need for recognition, for acknowledgement of his own worth, a feeling that he was never able to achieve in comparison to Thor, the Golden Child. Loki's quest for power, recognition, and vengeance has led him to betray and manipulate those closest to him. And yet, there is an undeniable layer of sadness to Loki's story, as he struggles to define himself in a world that sees him as lesser. But Loki is not alone in his desire for power. Thanos, one of the most formidable villains in the Marvel Universe, embodies the essence of power taken to its most destructive extremes. Thanos' ambition to impose his will on the universe is rooted in his belief that the universe is overpopulated and that the only way to bring balance is by wiping out half of all life. His infamous quest for the Infinity Stones, artifacts of unimaginable power, sets the stage for one of the greatest battles ever fought between heroes and villains. What makes Thanos such a compelling villain is his belief in the righteousness of his actions. To him, the massacre of half the universe is a necessary sacrifice, a cold but ultimately logical decision. Thanos represents the idea that true villainy is not always born out of malice, but out of an ideology that believes it is acting in the service of something greater. His story challenges the heroes of the Marvel Universe to confront not just his physical power, but his twisted view of justice. Then there is Magneto, the master of magnetism, who stands as one of the most iconic villains in Marvel's history. Magneto's motivations are deeply personal, shaped by the trauma he experienced as a child during the Holocaust. His hatred for humanity stems from his belief that mutants, his own kind, are superior to humans and deserve to rule the world. Magneto's ideology is rooted in a deep-seated fear and anger born from his experiences of persecution, and he believes that the only way to protect mutants is by overthrowing humanity. What makes Magneto such a powerful villain is the fact that his actions, while extreme, come from a place of truth. He is fighting for the survival and empowerment of his people. His struggle against Professor X's ideal of peaceful coexistence between humans and mutants becomes the battle of opposing visions, one of love and tolerance versus one of survival through domination. Magneto's complexity lies in the fact that he is, in many ways, a tragic figure. He is not a villain purely driven by power, but by the fear of history repeating itself. Dr. Doom, the ruler of Latveria, is another of Marvel's greatest villains, and like Magneto, his story is defined by both power and tragedy. Victor Von Doom is a man of exceptional intelligence, a brilliant scientist and sorcerer who believes that he alone is capable of ruling the world and bringing about peace. His actions, however, are always motivated by a deep sense of insecurity. His childhood, marked by the death of his mother and the rejection of his father, left him with a chip on his shoulder and a profound need to prove his worth. Doom's quest for control over the world is fueled by his belief that only he has the capacity to bring order to a chaotic and unjust universe. His refusal to see beyond his own ego and his constant obsession with proving his superiority to others makes him one of the most dangerous and unyielding characters in Marvel's rogues gallery. The legacy of Marvel's villains is not defined solely by their actions, but by the way in which their stories reflect the darker side of humanity. They are not one dimensional creatures of pure evil, but characters driven by complex emotions fear, jealousy, love, and revenge. What makes these villains so memorable is the fact that they are often reflections of the heroes they oppose. Where Captain America embodies the ideals of freedom, justice, and honor, Magneto represents the extreme measures that can be taken in the name of survival. Where Thor wields the power of a god, Loki's jealousy and insecurity lead him down a path of deception and betrayal. And where the Avengers work to save the world, Thanos believes that destroying half of it is the only way to achieve true balance. Marvel's villains challenge their heroes in ways that go beyond physical battles. They test the very ideals that the heroes fight for, forcing them to confront not only the external threat they represent, but the internal fears and flaws they mirror. Marvel's villains are a reminder that even the most well intentioned individuals can be corrupted by fear, power, and the desire for control. They embody the potential for darkness in all of us, and in doing so, they highlight the complexities of morality, choice, and responsibility. Their stories are cautionary tales, showing us that the line between heroism and villainy is not always as clear as we might like it to be. Ultimately, the legacy of Marvel's villains lies not in their defeat, but in the way they shape the heroes they battle, forcing them to grow, to question, and to strive for a better understanding of themselves and the world around them. The Infinity Stones are among the most powerful and sought after artifacts in the Marvel Universe. Each of these six stones time, space, reality, power, mind, and soul holds immense cosmic power capable of bending the fabric of reality itself. Throughout Marvel's history, the stones have been central to some of the most critical events in the universe, with their combined power leading to a series of cataclysmic and transformative battles. But what makes the Infinity Stones so compelling is not just their power, but the legacy they leave behind, a legacy that shapes the future of the heroes and villains who come into contact with them. The first introduction to the Infinity Stones comes through their individual appearances across the Marvel Universe. The Space Stone, housed within the Tesseract, allows its user to control space, warping it to their will and enabling instantaneous travel across vast distances. The Time Stone, housed in the Eye of Agamotto, grants control over time itself, enabling its wielder to manipulate the flow of time, whether it be in a small area or across the entirety of the multiverse. The Reality Stone, or the Ether, can bend reality to its users' desires, allowing them to reshape the world around them to suit their will. The Power Stone, perhaps the most dangerous of them all, amplifies the user's strength and energy to godlike levels. The Mind Stone, originally embedded in Loki's scepter, has the ability to control and manipulate minds, as well as grant the user telepathic powers. And finally, the Soul Stone, which holds dominion over life and death, is the most elusive and enigmatic of all, tied to the ultimate sacrifice and the balance of the universe. Together, these stones form the Infinity Gauntlet, a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of reshaping the entire cosmos in a single thought. The Infinity Gauntlet's significance is not just in its potential to destroy or create, but in the moral and philosophical questions it poses about the use of such immense power. The characters who seek the stones, whether for good or ill, are forced to confront not just their own desires, but the consequences of wielding such unchecked control over the universe. The first major use of the Infinity Stones comes through the efforts of Thanos, the Mad Titan, whose quest to collect the stones forms the central plot of the Infinity Saga. Thanos, driven by his belief in balance through destruction, sought to harness the power of the stones to erase half of all life in the universe, thereby balancing it in his eyes. His quest for the stones was not just a quest for power, it was a journey toward fulfilling his twisted vision of salvation for the universe. Thanos' actions raise deep questions about morality, sacrifice, and the cost of achieving one's goals. He was not simply a villain driven by greed. He was a character whose sense of righteousness was rooted in his own tragic worldview, one where destruction was a necessary evil to ensure the survival of life. In the face of Thanos' cosmic power, the Avengers and their allies were forced to band together in an effort to stop him from obtaining all the stones and enacting his genocidal plan. The heroes' struggle was not just a physical one, but an emotional and moral one, as they had to grapple with the personal costs of their actions, the consequences of losing, and the uncertain future that lay ahead. The Infinity Stones, in this sense, were not just tools of destruction, they were symbols of the greater power and responsibility that came with the ability to change the universe. The aftermath of the Infinity War and the events that followed revealed the true cost of wielding the Infinity Stones. The destruction wrought by Thanos' snap, a moment where half of all life in the universe was erased, was not just a physical loss, but an emotional one. The heroes, having lost so much, had to come to terms with the deep personal consequences of their failure. Yet despite this loss, the quest to undo Thanos' actions became a story of redemption, of selflessness, and of fighting for a future that seemed beyond reach. The eventual use of the stones to reverse Thanos' snap marked the culmination of a journey that was as much about sacrifice as it was about triumph. In the aftermath, the Infinity Stones' legacy continued to ripple throughout the universe. Their immense power was not easily forgotten, and their existence remained a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. The stones were eventually destroyed, or so it seemed, in a final act of sacrifice to prevent anyone from using them again. But their legacy, their power, and the questions they raised about destiny, choice, and the morality of those who wield ultimate power lingered long after they were gone. What the Infinity Stones ultimately teach us is that power, no matter how great, comes with a cost. Whether it is the desire to reshape reality, to control time, or to dominate the universe, the pursuit of such power always carries with it moral implications that cannot be ignored. The heroes of the Marvel Universe, in their quest to prevent the stones from falling into the wrong hands, discovered that true strength lies not in the ability to change the world, but in the ability to protect it without sacrificing one's humanity in the process. The legacy of the Infinity Stones is a reminder of the potential dangers of absolute power and the responsibility that comes with it. They are not just relics of cosmic importance. They are a testament to the idea that the greatest heroes are those who fight to protect what cannot be controlled, to preserve the balance of the universe without succumbing to the temptation to bend reality to their will. In the end, The legacy of the Infinity Stones is not one of destruction, but of the enduring hope that even in the face of unimaginable power, the choice to do what is right remains in the hands of those willing to sacrifice everything to save the universe. As the Marvel Universe continues to expand, it moves into an exciting new chapter, one full of possibilities, untold stories, and the promise of new heroes and villains. While the legacies of iconic figures like Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor continue to echo through the multiverse, Marvel's future is not just about honoring the past, it is about forging new paths, creating fresh narratives, and exploring uncharted territories. From the introduction of new characters to the vast expansion of the multiverse, the future of Marvel is one of constant reinvention and innovation, ensuring that the legacy of these beloved characters continues to resonate for generations to come. One of the most exciting aspects of Marvel's future is the introduction of new heroes from diverse backgrounds and untold realms. The shift towards more inclusive storytelling allows for a richer, more varied exploration of what it means to be a hero. With characters like Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, Black Panther, Shuri, and Shang-Chi now taking center stage, the Marvel Universe is embracing a new wave of protagonists who bring with them unique perspectives, backgrounds, and struggles. This diverse range of characters is not just a reflection of the changing world, but an opportunity for Marvel to tell stories that resonate with a wider audience, breaking down barriers and showing that heroism comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. The future of Marvel also holds the promise of new teams, each with its own dynamics and challenges. The X-Men, once sidelined by legal barriers, are making a comeback, promising a fresh look at the mutants and the complex world of prejudice, fear, and acceptance. The emergence of the mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, will no doubt lead to new explorations of identity, community, and the relationship between mutants and the rest of humanity. The X-Men's story is one of unity in the face of adversity, and their return to the spotlight will undoubtedly shape the next era of Marvel storytelling, providing a platform for powerful, socially relevant narratives. The rise of the multiverse is another key theme for Marvel's future. The multiverse, a vast and interconnected network of alternate realities, offers endless storytelling possibilities. It allows Marvel to explore what could have been, what could be, and what might never come to pass. With the introduction of the multiverse in films like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man, No Way Home, Marvel has opened the door to a multitude of alternate versions of characters and worlds. This concept not only provides opportunities for crossovers and exciting new team-ups, but also allows for a deeper exploration of identity and destiny. The multiverse gives Marvel the ability to tell stories that are not bound by the limitations of a single reality. Everything is possible, and nothing is set in stone. The expansion of the MCU into new genres and formats is another exciting development. As Marvel continues to produce both films and television shows, the storytelling possibilities grow exponentially. With series like WandaVision, Loki, The Falcon, and The Winter Soldier, and Hawkeye, Marvel is proving that its stories are just as impactful when told over multiple episodes as they are in blockbuster films. These series allow for deeper character development, slower explorations of personal journeys, and a more nuanced understanding of the characters we have come to love. This format also gives Marvel the opportunity to introduce lesser known characters and explore side stories that might have been too small or too complicated to fit into the main cinematic narrative. At the same time, the future of Marvel must also acknowledge the emotional legacies left by the characters who have shaped the universe thus far. The deaths of Tony Stark, Black Widow, and others have left a void, and while new heroes are emerging to take their place, the MCU will forever be shaped by the impact of these iconic figures. The stories of sacrifice, redemption, and heroism that defined these characters will continue to inspire the next generation of heroes, reminding audiences that even the greatest heroes are human and that their struggles and victories are what make them relatable and enduring. One of the most exciting prospects for the future is the increasing collaboration between Marvel and other beloved franchises. The multiverse, already stretching the boundaries of reality, offers the potential for even greater crossovers and team ups between Marvel characters and figures from other fictional universes. With the rising popularity of both Marvel and other major franchises, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that we could see characters from Star Wars, Doctor Who, Fantastic Four, and even X-Men interact in ways that fans have long dreamed of. These potential crossovers would offer unique opportunities for storytelling that could change the way we view these characters forever. Marvel's future is not only about new characters, new team ups, and new dimensions, it is about expanding the very nature of what it means to be a hero. The core of the Marvel Universe has always been about the human experience, the triumphs, the failures, the struggles, and the moments of clarity that define who we are. As the universe continues to evolve, these stories will remain at the heart of the Marvel brand, driving home the message that heroism is not about perfection, but about perseverance, compassion, and the desire to make a difference, no matter the odds. As Marvel moves forward, there will undoubtedly be more challenges to face, more villains to battle, and more cosmic threats to thwart. But in the end, the future of Marvel is about the stories that connect us all, whether it's through the introduction of new heroes, the exploration of alternate realities, or the deepening of existing legacies. Marvel's future promises to be as rich, diverse, and engaging as the universe it has built over the past decades. The heroes of tomorrow are waiting, and they are ready to rise, to fight, and to inspire. Thank you for journeying with me through the vast and ever expanding Marvel Universe. From the birth of heroes to the rise of villains, and from the depths of cosmic power to the heart of humanity, we've witnessed the endless evolution of stories that have shaped generations. As these beloved characters continue to grow, change, and face new challenges, we are reminded that heroism isn't just about defeating the enemy, but about the courage to rise again, to find hope in the darkness, and to build a future worth fighting for. May your thoughts, like the Marvel Universe, expand ever outward, full of possibility and wonder. As you drift towards sleep, let the legacy of these heroes and their stories of sacrifice and redemption guide you to a peaceful rest. Good night.